Hello again, and welcome back to the Daily Bread Bible Study. We are looking at day 61 for March 1st, 2020, focusing on Deuteronomy chapters 28 through 29. So we have some more instruction from Moses as he is kind of wrapping up things, and we will see how things parallel one another with blessings and curses again in another list here in Deuteronomy 28, and then Moses reviewing the covenant and warning again about idolatry. So let's look here in Deuteronomy 28. We see the blessings for obedience and warning for disobedience around very similar things most of all. The blessings include being blessed in the city and in the field, blessed by the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your ground and the fruit of your livestock. Blessed will be your basket and your kneading bowl. Blessed will be your coming in and your going out. And blessed will be you because your enemies will be defeated. And it says in Deuteronomy 28:9, the Lord will establish you as his holy people, as he has sworn to you, if you keep the commandments of the Lord your God and walk in his ways. So pretty straightforward, summarizing a lot of what's been said in Deuteronomy so far. Likewise, the opposite side of the coin is true in Deuteronomy 28:15. But if you will not obey, the consequences will include being cursed in the field and in the city, being cursed, the fruit of your womb, the fruit of the ground, and fruit of the livestock will be cursed. Your basket and your kneading bowl will be cursed. Your coming in and your going out will be cursed. You will suffer disaster, panic, frustration, and perish quickly, and you will be defeated by your enemies. So, almost identically the opposite. So the blessings or all these things will happen to you. Curses, all these things will not, or all these things will, go go as cursed, go terribly wrong. In verse 27, we pick it up with a few more added curses, including verse Deuteronomy 28:27. The Lord will afflict you with the boils of Egypt. That's a reminder that they did not suffer the plagues that were done in Egypt because they were loved by God and God was calling them out and they were suffering already. But then God is reminding them that he could easily bring the boils upon them like were in Egypt. He says, Deuteronomy 28:29, the curse shall be you shall continually be abused and robbed. 28:30, it's a theme that's picked up in other parts of the Bible as well too. It says, you shall build a house but not live in it. You shall plant a vineyard but not enjoy its fruit, which reminds me a lot of the exile period where the writers during the exile talk often about, the ways in which that they're not going to get to inhabit the fruit. Jeremiah and Isaiah are good examples of that. And then the idea that God will come and redeem them and they will get to have a vineyard and eat their fruit and all of that. In Deuteronomy 28:36, we see the Lord will bring you and the king whom you set over you to a nation that neither you nor your ancestors have known, where you shall serve other gods of wood and stone, which sounds an awful lot like it's foreshadowing the exile that will in fact take place with God's people after they've come into the time of prosperity in the Promised Land and the United Kingdoms section. But that is several hundred years away from happening. It says, you shall serve your enemies, kind of emphasizing that idea. And verse 47 through 57 talks about more details about enemies ruling over you. And verse 58 through 68 talks about more details about reliving the time in Egypt as, enslaved there. So it's all of these harking back while also foreshadowing a little bit of what is to come. with Babylon and Assyria later on in the Old Testament. But anyways, moving on to Deuteronomy 29. Moses then renews the covenant of the people. Moses calls the Israelites together and recounts again their Exodus story up to this point, saying that God's signs in Egypt, talking about God's provisions in the deserts, reminding them that they had clothing on their back and they were taken care of, and that God's defeat of King Sihon and King Og, and how the 2.5 tribes came to inherit that eastern portion of the inheritance for them. Moses then states the audience in Deuteronomy 29, 14 through 15. I make this covenant sworn by an oath, not only with you who stand here with us today before the Lord our God, but also with those who are not here with us today. So this reminds me of this covenant talking about, it's a covenant of being the past, present, and future. It's the covenant because it's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God who the promises has been made to. It's the present community who just wandered through the wilderness and their parents died off. So now they are looking to receive the promised land. But it's also especially about the future, about those who have not even been born yet. And this idea that people in the future will want to be able to talk about these instructions and be able to keep them, it could help identify and make them the chosen people of God. Today, in our context, we call them the Jewish people or Jews. And so they are the people who have inherited this law most directly. Christians, by virtue of having Jesus as a Jew, we can consider that, but it's most faithful to say that the Jews are the ones who inherit this culture. So Moses again warns people about worshiping other gods. In Deuteronomy 29:19, he says, beware of people who think they are safe even when we go our own stubborn ways. And this hard-heartedness is something that I think we as humans always wrestle with. Do we think we know better than God? Do we think that our ways are going to make us prosper? Do we think that nobody's going to find out if we commit any sins or if we do something to harm our neighbor? And the reality is there's always some effect and some consequence. It may just not be the ones that we see or know. So there's always something. So Moses is warning about this worshiping other gods and being connected to the selfish way of being. He calls it a poisonous and bitter growth that will be in the person and amongst the community. And contrary to Moses' statement to God in Exodus 32, where he says, why should the Egyptians say it was with evil intent that he has brought them out to kill them in the mountains, to consume them from the face of the earth? Moses in Deuteronomy 29:25 says kind of the opposite. They will conclude it is because they abandoned the covenant of the Lord, the God of their ancestors, that they would suffer and die and perish. So this, it's a jump from what Moses says previously in Exodus, but a lot of this, that Exodus 32 is the golden calf incident. Moses is trying to keep the promise going. Here Moses is trying, after the wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, Moses is saying, okay, I'm gone. You're going to have to take on this responsibility yourself. I'm not going to be able to mediate anything with God anymore. And people have already learned, that God has grown you even in the wilderness. So now it's going to be on you. If anything, goes wrong, that your parents who sinned and were stubborn against God are no longer here. And so you can go in with Joshua and Caleb leading the way, so that way you can be able to enjoy the covenant. But now that we've made this covenant, you will know that God will be steadfast to it. and God will make you his people and bring you into this land. But if you abandon the covenant, then that is when you will suffer. So it's very fitting of Deuteronomy as a whole and the discussion that we've had. We're looking forward to wrapping up Deuteronomy soon. And thank you for joining for another day of the Daily Bread Bible Study.